Many of us have seen this, right? How many of us have seen this? Probably every one of us, right? Biker on a pavement, right? We have seen this. Construction is going on, or a road slide has happened. A lot of activities are going on. The school is on the opposite side. Parents are taking the kids across, right? We have seen this. The cars, the rickshaws, and people are finding their way through walk through this. We have seen this jumping. Might have done this as well, jumping and going across the road. I've seen this in many parts of India more and more. Electrical poles right submerged in the water, and people are crossing the street without knowing whether there are open gutters or manholes, right? We have seen this heavily polluting street. We have seen this, and we have seen this. What it tells us is that safe street is not just about crime related activities, it's also much more. It's about accessibility, it's about creating that comfort, the safety. It is about creating an image that this place offers. And if you imagine 30% of our infrastructure, urban infrastructure, are streets and pathways, then how we make them safer for everybody. And there are environmental issues that we can come up with. There are social dimensions that we can look at over here, very apparent, right? And that links back to the SDGs. A lot of people don't talk about streets making an impact on SDGs, right? But SDGs, 30% of the urban infrastructure, streets, right? Huge impact. Pollution, environment, social dimensions, even psychological dimensions. You imagine honking of people, road rage, having to walk through this, accessibility, wheelchair guys or elderly crossing these streets, bikers running on the pavement, hitting people, having to have the health issues after all these things, right? So now I want to start the discussion with you all, right? I will stop sharing my screen and I would like to hear from you in the chat box. How do we take this forward? Do you like to put some points in the chat box, guys? I'm seeing still empty chat box. There is a general chat on the right side so that we can make it more interactive. I'm just putting a hi there so at least you guys can see that. Yeah. Yeah. Are you able to converse there in the chat box, guys? Okay, so let me start with the interactive session that I want to do with you guys, right, as part of the workshop. I want to understand from you. Let's talk about the bigger parameters, right? Like, let's set up 3 or 4 big parameters which will have an impact on creating a safer street, right? Yeah, hi, Deepali. Deepali, you want to give it a go? What you think that we 3 or 4 key parameters should be, or any other attendees? And then I will pull up an Excel sheet, and then we will put some of those criteria in that. Keep typing over here, guys. It's more interactive, more productive. Otherwise, it will be a lecture from me, and that would probably not be a learning curve rather than listening mode, right? Okay. Maybe let me start with the polls then. I think if I create a poll and probably we can interact through that. Hmm? I'm just putting the first criteria, which is accessibility, right? Okay, accessibility, and then create this. Okay, question type here. Is accessibility important? Safe Street, right? If I'm writing this down in the chat box, you will see yes and no and I've created a poll for the first criteria. Let's vote on that and see whether we are finding accessibility as an important feature or important attribute parameter for the safe street. Right? Are you guys able to see the poll? Yeah, correct. Good point. Very good point, Dipali, Amreen. Thanks for putting that. Um, uh, if I look at the poll, right, and are we guys putting anything in that? Let me just. Are you able to see the poll first of all? No. Okay. Anthony, how do we publish the poll? One person has voted. It seems. Yeah. Right. So accessibility is important. Now, if we put accessibility through, I think it's a very difficult way of doing the workshop. I'm sorry, guys. It's not very interactive, but let's try and get the best out of it. Okay. So if we say that accessibility is an important attribute, what are the key things that you see in accessibility that needs to be looked at, right? If you want to type down, right? For example, for me, if I look at that, um, bikers or the motorcyclists running on the pavement during the peak hour, right? When the kids want to go out, or when the elderly wants to go out and walk, that is something that freaks me out as an urban dweller. What do you think that these micro points or issues or subjects that you need to write down in the accessibility part? Like 18,000 people get killed crossing the road, right? Every year. Lighting of the street, absolutely. Lighting of the street is very important. Visibility, that is something that we feel quite quite poorly on the pavements and other places. Yeah. What about signages? I mean, we have seen that a number of times that the cities, or particularly the streets, not having enough signages. Adequate sidewalk, correct? But adequate sidewalk, how do we make sure that these sidewalks are used by the pedestrians and not by the motorcyclists? Yes, hawker encroachment, very important. Um, and again, the informal economy, right? So how do we create a structure which allows the encroachment to stop and become more established economy along, because that's the cultural thing that we have, but probably make sure that the designs are done in such a way that hawkers don't feel isolated. Road marking, clear road marking such as lane lines, crosswalks. Yes, that's important, but I think the behavior thing that you mentioned, Dipali, in the first place is also very important. That how we change that behavior of people, right? And that also is something that needs a lot of design intervention. Like for example, it's not just that law enforcement or policy can change the behavioral psychology of people. If we design in such a way the pavements and streets, I think we would be able to create an environment that is more accessible, not encroached by the hawkers, not encroached by the bikers during the peak hours. Is safer for people to walk in, right? Now I'm just going to close that poll that we had. I think it's only, I'm just going to publish that. Yeah. Okay. Now let me ask another question. See, if I agree that safety links with accessibility. We know that wheelchair guys are not able to go out. It's not an accessible for all, right? The fear of somebody running you over is so high. Even if you are walking on a well marked uh, sidewalk, right? A cycle lane is often found parked car parked on the cycle lane, right? We have seen all these things happening. Then how we change that? So by design approach, I would say should we say by design approach is the approach that we should take to create a more accessible for all environment? Should I put that as a poll and then see whether what you guys think, right? Let me create another poll which says by design approach for the safe, accessible. I'm keeping it simple in polls so that we can sort of conclude further, right? Okay, so I have published the poll right now, which is: do you think by design approach is the right approach for creating accessible for all environment? So where the kids can go out and walk on the street, where um, physically challenged or differently abled people are able to use these streets or pavements more effectively. Elderly could go out without a fear of run over. Imagine the amount of anxiety it creates for the kids or the family members when they send their kids or their parents out for walk or something, right? Or imagine the kind of emotions going through people who are using these payments and feeling very unsafe. That also has a very important impact on your mental health, right? So this question by design approach, let's see how we can come up with the answer on that, and then let's move to the other criteria owing to the time that we have. Now, while that is happening, the poll is happening. Let me ask you guys, what do you think the by design approach should consider? Right? Is it the you have seen those bollards which are like put apart like 15 centimeters or 30 centimeters where hardly a person could walk through, and this is done to prevent the bikers running on the pavement, right? Now, what happens to that? That cannot let a pedestrian to walk through, let alone the uh, wheelchair, right? How can wheelchair move through that, right? I've seen in Pune nice smart city projects developed in various parts of Pune, and the bollards are like 1 feet apart, and the wheelchair cannot move through that. So we are assuming that those guys are not human. Those guys are not allowed to use the public realm. um, that by design approach is something that worries me. So, what do you think the by design approach should be? What should we be doing in creating the better accessibility for all? Is it design of pavement, curb? Is it policy? Is it law enforcement? Is it surveillance issues? Is it fast response from the authority? I have been posting a lot on LinkedIn and social media about how the road that is touching our housing scheme where I stay, Barnet Road, um, people are using pavements all the time, like hawker encroachment or bikers on the road, on the pavement, or lots of accidents happening. Kids can't go out to a provision store to buy a chocolate, something like that. So, what do you think the design approach is? Because these all are well designed streets, but still we fail to get that. What is that is missing in this design approach? If you guys want to add anything there. Yeah, good points. All good points, Dipali. And I want other people also to contribute, guys. You are on call, and please please put your points across. Right, I can see Omkar, Ajit, Babaz, Ashwini, Feliciana, right? Purna, Nidhi, Amreen, Emali, Yash, Rupali, Arshia. Please, guys, put some of your points across so that we can move further on some of the other criteria that we like to discuss. Absolutely, absolutely, Anthony. It has to be accessible for all, right? Yes, access existing conditions absolutely important. And the other thing which is very important, that which I learned in the UK when I was working there, is the understanding the context, who all are living in that area, what is the demographic, balance of that area. Is it is it young crowd, is it family, is it elderly, is it combination? And then it's the design approach for that entire street depends on how that area should be developed, right? So the whole neighborhood action plan gets created based on who is part of that neighborhood. A lot of stakeholder consultations take place. Who are the passing by guys? How much of that should be restricted? The hawker community, or the artery roads that are used by some users who are not living in that area but using that street or a road to cross that. So that needs a planning dimension at a neighborhood level, which probably is not happening. um, that could solve a lot of problem as well when we look at that. So now that I end this other poll, and I will end accessibility section with the last poll, that how many of you think that there should be a neighborhood action plan for each of the neighborhood to create better streets, understanding the context, understanding the users, right? Let me create that poll while I end this poll. I think poll seems to be the better interactive mode, because I'm not hearing from other guys. Guys, hope you had enough coffee in the morning, or tea, or green tea, whatever. Please contribute. All right. So, should we be doing neighborhood action plans or creating safer streets, right? I'm just adding simple yes, no, maybe, right? Create. Okay, so this poll is live, guys. I hope you can put some thoughts there. Then we can move to another criteria, which I think is very important. Absolutely, I think Dipali, very good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very important. Yeah, very important. Very important. Now, now let me look at this new thing that I think we can sort of. How do I cancel? Yeah. Okay. Now, so Dipali's made point in the group chat, guys. You see that, right? And those points are very important. Anthony, Amrin, thanks for putting the points across. Um, Let me now move to the next criteria, considering the time left. Lekha, thanks for putting the point across. Yes, yes, absolutely. Vulnerability assessment is very important, and that's something at neighborhood action plan level should be considered. So at the moment, what we do in planning or development, what we call TP roads, DP roads, and all, right? They are like town planning level interventions, right? 18-meter, 24-meter, 9-meter, right? But that's not the answer, right? 9-meter, but do I need that 9-meter road or DPTP, whatever, 18-meter road? How much of that should be pavement? How much of that should be for cyclists? How much of that should be for a dedicated? Because if imagine somebody needs to get out on a street, some emergency happens, even the response time for an ambulance to get to your housing society would be so difficult, even on the road. Actually, if something happens on a pavement, some accident happens, these 9-meter, 18-meter, 24-meter roads are of no use because the ambulance can't get to you, right? What are the methods that we can look at that? So accessibility is very important part of that, and neighborhood action plan should be more comprehensive than what we are doing, right? So these two are good outcome. I think when you go back, reflect on this, when you design something, when you are interacting or making a policy, look at this, right? Now moving on to the next point. How many of you have seen lots of these? I mean, I put those pictures, right? But how many of you have seen a lot of garbage dumped on the pavement, got a lot of garbage dumped on the street, blocking the storm, blocking the roads, blocking the access, also creating hostile environment, health and safety issue, right? Have we seen this in our and around our places where we live, right? Should I put that in a poll, or you guys gonna respond in that chat? So have we have we seen streets flooded with garbage, right? And yes, often, and I would say nobody will say no, but still I'm giving it a chance. Okay, right? Okay, right. So that poll is created. But I would like to hear yes, yes, all. Yes, yes, Dipali. Yes, Purna. And and when we look at this, what's our first feeling that we get? Is it related to the cleaning of the street, or is it related to the behavior of people again living around the street? This links back to again that neighborhood action plan thing, area development plan or neighborhood action development plan thing. But also it links back to the behavior of people and how it affects the uh, one thing leads to another. Like if we don't respect our own streets, like so residents who complain about residents who complain about bikers running on pavement, and the same residents dump garbage on the same pavement. So, how much respect that we have for our own pavement, that we want to claim it back from the bikers, but we don't want to claim it back from our own behavior, that is, dump the garbage on that pavement. It's the mindset, yes. Now, this mindset, how do we change this mindset? Is it something that we can do through design, through policy interventions, through enforcement, like putting CCTV camera across the road? Would that be an answer, you think? Users into no space. Exactly. Yeah, very good points, Purna and Dipali. Absolutely. See, the point is, other point is, do we provide enough facility? So now it's whole of this chicken and egg situation gets created, right? That, oh, we generate so much waste. That is my personal choice. People don't think that generating more waste is a bad thing, but we want to, because we live in a consumer society. So we are going to generate waste, but now government is not providing enough garbage bins, or they're not collecting it, so we are dumping it there. And then the other guys will have thought process around, well, there's so much of waste, how much we can do, there is a population that we need to work with. And the third aspect would be that, well, you don't care about your payments, why do I care about your payment, and I will just run over that anyway, right? um, so it's just the behavior of passing the buck, right? It's like, I don't, I will do this because other is not doing that, and the other person will say, well, I will continue to do this because x and y not doing that, right? So that mindset, how we can change again. And I, I will create another poll over here, but I personally feel that why the developed societies, or some of these even not so developed societies like Bali, or I mean, not like GDP wise, we are four, fine, that's great, but but these all are poor countries than us, but still their neighborhoods are cleaner, the payments are walkable. Why is it that, right? Again, I feel that the approach that they have in the planning system is to look at very specific areas in a very specific manner, right? And then they come up with a gap analysis ideas that, this area needs so much of capacity when it comes to the waste management, right? And these all are the processes we want to put in place: door to door collection, on the road, these kind of bins, or on the road, this kind of areas provided in our pavement. The pavement 1.5 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, whatever is provided. Suddenly you see uh, an electric substation, or something of services pulled out, or there is no space left for bins, right? These all are safety issues as well, right? Because you're walking, and then you don't know what's in front of you, or suddenly you are encountering something else, right? So again, I think, and I believe, and if I put a poll across and let me know, but again, I think the neighborhood action plan, more specific approaches for the streets are important as we go along, to create safer streets for us, right? If I look at the poll and put it there, right? Yeah, cool. Okay. So for now, I probably will combine one more thing to this before we move to the poll. How many of you relate yourselves with an image of a street. When we say Oxford Street, Piccadilly Square, we talk about Cannot Place, we talk about um, what is that very popular street in Mumbai called Fashion Street? Fashion Street, right? We relate ourselves with certain type or name of street, and we have an image of that street in our mind, right? Do you think creating an image for a street could prevent safety issues on the street? How many of you think that that is possible, that if we create an image for a street, right, that could lead? I have, but if you say India, for example, India also, there are lots of streets like that has a character like your, let's say there is a place in every city where you go for shopping for, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Lakshmi Road, absolutely. So there are streets where we go for certain shopping, certain um, certain type of activities take place, right? That used to be the planning system back then, right? And how do we sort of link that back into creating safer street, right? There is a perception of crime related to this, and that's why I'm making this point, right? For example, in Nottingham, when I was studying there, there was a place called Gorsey Road, which was listed as seventh highest crime activity in the entire UK. Right, so there was a perception created there, right, that this is an unsafe area. You shouldn't go there after 12 o'clock in the night, or you shouldn't go after dark in this area. Right, there is a perception, there is an image, there is a character associated with that, right? Yeah, good point. Good point. See, these are good examples that Deepali is putting on the chat box, and Deepali Jadia is putting a point across to change the mindset, which is important, right? Um, yeah. So, do you think there should be a character or a perception or an image for any street that we live on? Because 30% of this, the infrastructure, the life, I was just calculating on average, and I was just reading a couple of articles yesterday. um, 3 to 4 hours on average every day we spend on roads, on streets, or activities related to public realm, right? outside environment Outside environment linked to streets, linked to pavements, linked to squares, linked to activities we do. And believe me that historically we used to have all these images, right? That this is Baikula, this is Dadar, this is that. Now the new streets, the new roads, the new places, there is no image. What those roads are: DP road 18-meter wide, TP road 24-meter wide, right? What is that brings, FC road that has a character, right? In many towns you will find this historical character, image based road, right? And in the new developments, what we find is 18, 24, 23, 36-meter road. I'm doing 6-lane highway, blah blah blah. Where is the image? Where is the character? And do we think that that has anything to do with safety? So let me create that poll over here, and let's see. Let's hear from people whether that has any value. Okay. Mm, okay, I've created this poll which says image of a street or a place. Do you believe that it has an impact on creating safer streets? Should I post these questions into chat box as well, guys, so that some of you guys not looking at the poll probably can look at the questions over here? Right. Then I want to move to the summing up of session because we will be hitting 10:45 soon. So last 15 minutes, I want to interact with you in creating two or three measures that we can leave with the Rise team, right? Rise Foundation team, and then we can probably see how that leverages um, further. Okay. So when I mean, my background is urban designer and architect. So I worked on a number of projects which are linked to area neighborhood action plans or safe, creating a safer environment for people around. And one of the projects that I was working on, again in Nottingham, which was rated as seventh highest crime places in UK. Um, the thing that the focus actually was to do the stakeholder consultation, right? Everybody participates in that activity, do the design, share it, and all those things. But in that part of the process, what we try to do with the community is to create an image for that area. Is it because of that negative image of the area? It had an impact on visitor footfall, it had an impact on economy, it had an impact on a lot of other things that move around that particular street and the surrounding area, right? Changing the image of that area requires a lot of effort, right? You have to look at from top down approaches like putting up CCTV cameras, having a policy, enforcement, more number of policing on street. At the same time, bottom up approaches like how we create more natural surveillance on the street so that the crime can be prevented. How we create more uses such that they are open round the clock or open to certain hours, and that provides comfort for people. How we create image of this area by providing signages, digital signages, which has GPS link police cars mapped on that, so you know where exactly you are and how far these police cars are from you. Uh, that has an impact of confidence, creating confidence in visitor. At the same time, creating a fear in imposter, right? That they know that okay, a car is only 5 minutes away. If I do something, I'll get caught, right? So we created those digital signages with GPS linked system, a speed dial at the signages as well to reach out to police. Also, we created the placemaking exercise around this to provide them a number of shops that could link to activities which are beyond the dark, right? And that actually changed the perception of this area. And slowly, the area started to evolve as a vintage which used to have uh, an image of crime-led area to an area which people now started visiting to see what this area is all about. That was so criticized across, and how it is changing. So it created rather more curiosity from other people to visit this area, and then the perception started changing. When the perception started changing, image started improving, and then when the image started improving, the fear of crime, right, uh, or perception towards that, if I go there, I probably will have these issues reduced, and the area started becoming better. uh, Economy started becoming better, and then people started taking care of those areas. So those guys were also dumping garbage. Dumping garbage is not just India thing. It happens in UK as well. Here also they were dumping garbages on the road. The um streets were filthy with all these things. A lot of other activities were going on the street because after dark, not many people visit. So only certain activities used to take place, which started improving the whole area. And people started taking ownership of that area because they were participating in these workshops, they were participating in these design charrettes, right? So they felt responsible for this area. Something that I feel missing heavily, that when we look at the new development, people or the developers or the clients talk about what is my FSI, how many units I'm going to build, how much of the volume I can sell in the market, rather than creating a community which feels responsible, right, for creating a better environment in that area, right? So I think that is again one thing that I feel, that changing an image of an area or creating an image of a new area is very important if you want to create safer streets around that. It can't be just DPTP roads. It needs to have much more than that, right? So I'm just going to end this poll that we did. I just want to look at the chat box one more time. Safe Street is cross-cutting approach. Yes, absolutely. 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 Very important point, Lekha. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very good point, Lekha. And I agree with you. Is cross-cutting and how we stitch it together as planners, as policymakers, as urban dwellers, very important, right? Historically, our streets were much safer, right? Because of many reasons, right? There were wider footpaths. We did not need footpaths to be used for um, bikers because there were less number of bikes, less number of cars. Now we can't go back in Stone Age, but still, how we create a better environment around us by creating this cross-cutting approach, as you mentioned, is very important. Anyone want to raise any questions that I could answer? While we have about 10 minutes left in the call. Do you think you want to ask any questions that I could answer, please? Or do you want to put forward any suggestions that you want to sort of put forward over here? Yeah, true. Pune Municipal Corporation point, absolutely spot on, Dipali. Thank you, Dipali. I think you have put really good points across, and I really appreciate that involvement, and all the other Dipali, Chadia, Amreen, Purna. Thanks for putting those points across. Now we have just about 10 minutes, so let's look at urban centric mindset. That's a good point. But do you want me to answer on that, or do you think that's a rhetorical question, Dipali, Jadia? And Dipali Bhagwate, why only at certain places we see great roads with all the measures taken? And I think your point is related to Indian streets, right? I assume it's for Indian streets. So if I come back to that question and see how some areas get more improved, there are two ways of looking at this. One is the interest from the community, that they want their roads to be better. They want to take ownership of that. They go and battle with the authorities to get their streets better. And the second is the economy, right? I think economy also plays a better role. That if it's a flourishing economy, the roads are really like South Bombay, or South Delhi, right? The roads are really anywhere in your sort of foreign or a waterfront in Ahmedabad. So it's a good examples because it has a dimension which cross-cutting dimension like social dimension, economic dimension, and and the interest and involvement from community and willingness from authority. So it has to come together. If it comes together, then those roads that we see in some places which are better than the other, we will be able to get all the roads like that if it comes together, right? That's what I believe. Dipal, if you agree with that, let me know, or else I can put that into poll as well. Um, the other point that Lekha made, can you please suggest any reading materials or websites which can help us knowing more about Safe Street? Yes, yes. Uh, I'll share with you some book names, Lekha. Maybe I will put into the chat box later. But there are streets. If you look at the author names, if I share with you now, so there is an author named Jane Jacob, right? I will put it over here in the chat box, right? Okay. If you read some of her arguments, quite quite in the mid uh, last century to late last century, but you will find it so relatable that what we are discussing today, right? And there is another book which was authored by Professor Tanner Hawk and Stephen Tisdale on Safe. And this Safer Street, Stephen Teasdale and Tanner Rock, is lot to do with Nottingham because they were professors in University of Nottingham, and they created this whole book around their case studies done in Nottingham, the changes that happened in that area. Plus, they brought some case studies and benchmarks and assessments from all around the world to prove or to justify some of the points they were making in the transition process. So, if you read that, I think that could also be a good book to look at. Right? Does that answer your question, Lekha? I will be able to share more reading material as well. Right? But I certainly think that these road beautification, which we see happening all around at the moment, is not necessary. Like this is my personal opinion, but I whether you agree with that, probably you agree with that, but or not. But I don't think that just the beautification of roads is not the answer, right? A lot of these markings they put get vanished. Nobody stops at the junction for anybody. Uh, Last year, jumped from 18,000 to 22,000 death on the road, crossing road. Or 1 lakh bicyclists got killed, or motorbikers and bicyclists got killed in road accidents. So these, apart from other social issues that we obviously keep hearing recently, that thing in Delhi or whatever. So this road safety is a big issue. It's a big part of our life. Every day we spend 3 to 4 hours related to these things, and if we are not vocal about it, if we are not involved in that, if we don't sort of collaborate and create better streets for us, then nobody else is going to create it for us. So I think it's about creating that collaboration, putting policies in place, but then making sure that policies are implementable, uh, go beyond DPTP approach and make more neighborhood centric approach, more specific to the environment where the streets are planned, um, get the community involved, take the ownership, uh, and collaborate in creating better environment. I think that sums up what I wanted to discuss today and share with you from my experiences. Um, if I have missed any question, let me just see. Thank you, thank you. Um, I feel roads are not made by engineers in India; it's politicians. That's a very good point. Yeah, yeah, and and the and the roads are also not made by engineers as well, or not probably qualified engineers, uh, that we know. Some of the roads that I worked on projects where I felt, it's like contractor driven rather than engineer driven. So let's see how that can change. But ownership from, if I sum up this way, and let me know whether it's right or wrong, but let me put a poll here. A good point. Yeah. Let me put a poll over here that if I put these points here and say that community participation, then two is ownership, three is collaboration, four is going beyond TP, beyond TP, DP roads, creating uh, specific. And five, image and area. Do you think this sums up our discussion? Um, I'm just saying very simple yes and no, and I just published this poll, and then we can just wait for that poll to get answered, and then close it. Anthony, that's okay, right? Great, thank you. Maybe election driven, yeah. Yeah, politics plays a big role not only in India. I tell you, it's everywhere, right? Um, we see more some places, we don't see more some places. There are different way of ethics and morals in different part of the world. But the point is, if it's a collaborative approach, I think we can get the things done well.